Oh, so. Yeah, I'll try. I'm trying to think of the case.
Today you guys are gonna wanna have out that, cheat sheet for this chapter. So one thing I just wanted to tell you guys is, right now I have a test for chapter 3 planned for Friday. And it would be what we did last week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We are about a day or two ahead of Mrs. Deering's class, and we have to kind of be at the same page at the end of the trimester. But if you guys feel like tomorrow when you take the practice test, if you're like, holy cow, this is gonna be a hard test, I could make up like a second practice test, but then your test would get put back on Monday. Which would you guys, what are you thinking? Like, would you rather just get the test done on Friday or? Do you think? Everybody okay with that? Okay, but just know tomorrow when you start the practice test, like if you're like overwhelmed and like this is gonna be too hard, let me know, okay? All right. So today we're gonna do the quadratic formula, which I think is, have you guys all seen this before? Quadratic formula? Okay. So I would think that you would have in your Algebra 1 class, and then, I don't know if we did that in geometry at all or not. So what's going to happen is the quadratic formula is another way to solve the equations that can't be factored. So whenever you get an equation, quadratic formula works for every single one. So it's the most universal one. And this is something actually, if you guys remind me, I can put this on your calculator after this chapter. And we have a quad program, it's called. And every time you get an equation that is a quadratic equation like this in the future in your math classes, you can put it into your calculator and it will solve it for you. Because we're just teaching you the quad formula, we don't do it in this chapter. We don't give it to you, but we can give it to you after. But the quadratic formula is the most universal one. It works for any equation at all. So what you do in this is you look at what number is in front of your x squared, and that is your a. And if there's nothing there, you assume it's a 1. In front of your b is -10. And then your constant is -11. Okay. Now, when we look here, what we would do is just substitute in our b, our a, and c into that equation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go x equals -b would be minus a -10. Okay, and if you wanted to, you know, it's minus a -10, which is going to be a +10. You could have done that right away. Plus or minus b squared, which is a negative 10 squared, and I would get in the habit of putting it in parentheses because when you type that into your calculator, you want to do that. And then it's going to be minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 11. And then it's going to be all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you, can you guys come up and grab a calculator? I want to make sure that you have a calculator when we're doing this. Yeah.
Are we sure it's? Yeah.
Are there enough there for you guys?
Yeah.
I have
You
extra.
guys have room? We got 2. Yeah, I had it for you. Yeah.
Just wait for those girls to come back and get started. Or did any, yeah, Sam's done. All right, so here's how you're going to start this. You are going to enter what's underneath the square root first. Don't put the square root, just enter what's underneath the square root. So you're going to go parenthesis, negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times a negative 11. Okay, so type that in exactly how it looks. To up here. Negative 11 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 11. Did you guys get 2065 or no? It's 10. This?
No.
No, 11 today. Oh, sorry. Okay. So let's try that again. Minus 4. Plus 4 times 1 times negative 10, right? That's a lot. How am I doing that? So 144? Okay. So now what we have, I'm gonna just simplify this. Minus a minus becomes plus. So this is 10 plus or minus. This we just got to be 144. And it's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Now, if this is a perfect square, which do you guys all recognize that 144, the square root of 144 is 12. So if it's a perfect square, what you're going to do next is you're going to go 10 plus or minus 12 all over 2. So you're just going to take that square root, but you only do that if it's a whole number. Okay. Now what we have is we have 2 different answers there. So we're going to kind of go and separate them. We have x equals 10 plus 12 divided by 2. And we have x equals 10 minus 12 divided by 2. Okay. Now, when you do this, if you do, you don't want to just punch this into your calculator at this point. I would add the top. 10 plus 12 is 22 divided by 2, which is 11. Okay. And then here, the only thing I caution you too is if you just type this into your calculator and you went 10 minus 12 divided by 2, you would get everyone wrong. If you're going to do that in your calculator here, you'd have to go 10 minus 12 enter divided by 2. Okay, so 10 minus 12 is negative 2 over 2. And so that would be negative 1. But again, if you're going to type it in, you have to hit enter here, or you could put this in parentheses. Okay. When you get whole numbers for your answer, that means you could have factored the equation. Okay. And you're going to see today, you don't always get that. But if you do, that means you could have factored it. All right. So let's go to this page. Look at this. So the first thing we're going to do is say A is 1, B is negative 16, C is 64. Okay. In for B, it's a minus B, so it's minus a negative 16, plus or minus B squared. Make sure you put the negative 16 in parentheses before you square it, and then it's minus 4. A is 1 and C is 64. And that is all over 2 times 1 because A is 1. Now again, what we do is we type this into our calculator. Okay. So if we do that, did you guys get 0 when you did that? Okay. All right. So minus a negative 16 is 16. This is plus or minus the square root of 0 all over 2. What do you guys think the square root of 0 is? Just 0. So whenever you get a 0 under there, you don't have to worry about any of this. Okay, because it's really just plus 0 or minus 0, which is not going to change it. And your answer then is just going to be 16 divided by 2, which is 8. So when you get a 0 under the square root, you're always going to have just one answer. Okay. Then let's look here. Now, if you remember yesterday when we were completing the square, we had to divide everything by 2 if there was a 2 in front of the x squared. But with quadratic formula, you don't have to do that. So when you look here, first thing we can say is A is 2, B is 6, C is negative 7. Okay. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to substitute those in. So negative B is negative 6 plus or minus. B squared is 6 squared minus 4 times A is 2 times C is negative 7. And that is all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 2. Now again, go and punch this into your calculator. Okay. So that'd be 36 minus 54. So did you get like negative something?
92.
Negative 90.
No, just 92.
Oh, because that's plus. I get it. All right. So negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 92 all over 2 times 2 is 4. Now, this is where you're going to want to look at your perfect squares. Now, on that cheat sheet that I gave you, are these listed there on the cheat sheet? Yeah, so you have the perfect squares. So when you have 92 like that, one of the things you have to make sure is that one of these perfect squares does not divide evenly into that 92. So if it's 92, I always start at the one that's just below 92. And you want to think, if you took 92 divided by 81, would you get a whole number? And you wouldn't. 92 divided by 64, you would not get a whole number. 92 divided by 49, you wouldn't. 36, you wouldn't. 25, you wouldn't. And if you don't know, just divide them. Take 92 divided by 16. If it's a whole number, then that's right. If it's not, if it's a decimal, you keep going. 92 divided by 9 is not, but actually 92 divided by 4 is a whole number. So what that means is we have to rewrite that 92 as 4 times 23. And then it would still be all over 4. Now, if you remember what we did with this yesterday and the last couple of days, if you have the square root of 4 under there, do you guys remember how you can bring a 2 out front? And then the last thing that you have to do, let me just rewrite this first. So you get 2 root 23 all over 4. The last thing that you have to do is you have to look at this number, and this number. You don't worry about what's under the square root. You can't change that. But you look at these 3 numbers. If there's a number that divides evenly into all 3 of those, you have to do that. What goes into 6, 2, and 4? 2, right? So what that means is I have to rewrite that and divide each one of these by 2. -6 divided by 2 is -3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You could put the 1 here. Most people would not, but you could put a 1 here. And then it would be root 23 all over 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that would be your answer. And again, like if you guys got this far and you didn't realize a 4 came out, or you got this far and you didn't realize these could be reduced, you would lose like partial credit, but not the whole problem, as long as I can see what you were doing. Okay, so let's look at this one. A is 1, B is -6, and C is 10. So we're going to do -b, which is minus a -6, plus or minus b squared is a -6 squared, minus 4 times A is 1 times C is 10. And that is going to go all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 1. Okay. Now, if you remember, we can simplify minus a -6 is going to be a 6. And if you type this in, do you get a -4? Okay. And then it's all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay. Do you guys remember what happens when there's a negative underneath the square root? You take an I out front. Okay. Now I have 6 plus or minus. What's the square root of 4? 2, right? So I would also take a 2 up front. So it'd be 6 plus or minus 2i all over 2. And when you do that, you look at all 3 of these numbers. Something has to go in all 3 of them. And does it? What goes into all of those? 2. So into 6, 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you could put 1i or just I. And then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So do you really think I have to put anything on the bottom? I don't, because 2 divided by 2 is just 1. Now, if you didn't realize that and you put it over 1, that's not wrong. Okay? So that is your answer. But one thing I want to show you, say that you guys had this. Something has to go into all 3 of these. 2 goes into 6, but 2 does not go into 3. 3 goes into 6, but 3 does not go into 2. So that will happen sometimes where you can't reduce those 3 numbers and you just have to let it be then, and that would be your answer. So it's only when something goes into all 3 of those. So now that this is exactly what I was just talking about is, can we simplify these? And if you notice, we have a -6, a 5, and a 4. Is there a number other than 1 that goes into all 3 of those? No, right? So then you would just leave it. -6 plus or minus 5, root 23 all over 4. And you can never change the whatever's under the root. What about if we had a 6, a 2, and a 4? 2 would go into each of those, so this would be -3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You could put a 1 here, you don't have to. And we'd have the root 23 all over 4 divided by 2 is 2. That's how we'd write that. And like I said, if you put a 1 in front of there, that is not wrong. Now in C, one thing we have to do with this one is we have to simplify this more before we can do anything. So if you look at that -8, first of all, because it's negative, we have to take a 1 outside, okay? Or I'm sorry, an I outside. Then we have square root of 8 underneath there. Think of our perfect squares. Is there a perfect square that divides into 8? 4, yes. These are our perfect squares. 4 divides evenly into 8. So what we would have to do there is go -2 plus or minus I. 8 can be written as 4 times 2 all over 6. Okay. Now, the square root of 4 is what? 2. So I'd bring that 2 out and that 4 is gone. So now what I have is -2 plus or minus 2I times the square root of 2 all over 6. Then I look at this, this, and this to see if I can reduce that. I can't change this 2 under the square root, but doesn't 2 go into each of those? So I can divide each of these by 2. So -2 divided by 2 would be -1. Plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. If it helps you to put a 1 there, you can. You don't have to. This one you have to put because it's holding this place. But the one here you could put, but you don't have to. Again, we can't change that 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And this is your answer. All right, now the last thing I'm going to show you today is actually easier than what we just did. And that is, you can tell in an equation by doing something called the discriminant, which is what's underneath the square root. If you evaluate just that, you can tell how many roots something has. And so that's what we're going to talk about next. They're going to have us do the discriminant. Is that on your cheat sheet too, like this right here? Okay. So Here is what happens once you find that discriminant. If you get a negative number, okay, that tells you when you graph it. Remember when you graph something, where it crosses the x-axis is your real x answers, okay? If your graph is up above and it doesn't touch the x-axis, that means you have imaginary solutions. And that's what this is saying. If your discriminant is less than 0, you're going to have 2 imaginary roots, okay? If your discriminant is 0, you're going to have 1 real root. And what that would look like is when it was graphed, it would touch the x-axis 1 time, and this would be your antecedent, okay? And then if your discriminant is greater than 0, you're going to have where it crosses the x-axis twice, and that's going to be 2 real roots. Okay. All right, and then here's perfect squares again. So let's look here, and we're just going to find the discriminant on these. Okay. So A here is 7, B is -11, C is 5. All I'm going to do here, this B squared minus 4AC is what's under the square root. That's what we're going to evaluate. So I'm going to put -11 in parentheses, and that's squared, minus 4 times A is 7 and C is 5. So when you guys figure that out, what is it? Is that negative? What is it? Negative 19. Okay, so that would be one of your answers. And then you would look at your chart, which I think this is on your cheat sheet too. And because it's negative, you would say you have 2 imaginary roots. Okay, so that would be 2 imaginary roots. And that just means your graph is not going to touch the x-axis at all. Okay. Now, if I look here, my A is 1, my B is 22, my C is 121. So if I plug that in for B is 22, and that's squared, minus 4 times A is 1, C is 121. Okay, when you guys type that in, you get 0. Okay. So here you get 0, so that's one of your answers. And then if we look back at this chart, if it's 0, you have 1 real root. So that means it would touch your x-axis 1 time, okay? And then this one, A is going to be a -5, B is 8, C is -1. So B is 8 squared minus 4 times A is -5, C is -1. Okay, so we get 64, a minus times a minus times a minus. Like I have this up here. If you ever have an odd number of negative signs multiplied or divided, an odd number of negatives is going to give you a negative, or you could just multiply it out to see that too. Did you guys get 44? Did it? Does that sound right? Okay. So this one is positive. So when it's positive, when it's greater than 0, you don't really have to say the distinct. You can just say 2 real roots. So 2 real roots. And that would mean it crosses the x-axis twice. So we have a worksheet for today. And then I'll put the key up here. I think Skyward is working again. You can also look on there. It was hard today. So tomorrow you have a practice test and then Friday is the test. I forget you. There you go.